Hey, Caitlin. All right. So first of all, thanks again for your patience and understanding. So we have this past life spread for you here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to where you were, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day with relationships and feelings, the death, and lesson learned. We'll get hints of time throughout too, okay? So all I'm going to do is relay to you the imagery and impressions that are coming through here, and your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can based off of what comes through in your current life, and I'll try to help however I can, okay? So keep in mind there are a couple of ways to make connections. Direct and opposite. Direct connections is when you can directly connect or resonate with what's coming right through here. An opposite connection is the type of thing where, for example, if we see someone die of drowning in another life, they may come back and be very fearful of swimming or water for no reason. So we can make all kinds of connections in that way because our soul likes to expand and have different experiences. So just be mindful of that as we move through. And you might want to grab a notebook and pen. A lot of stuff seems to come through these readings. And remember, if you connect or resonate, just don't force it. Just, connect however you can. And what you might not connect with, you want to tuck in the back of your mind for a later time because things tend to come up in the days, weeks, months, year later kind of thing, all right? Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. All right, so first of all, what I want to say is that things were coming through while shuffling that may not pertain to this life, and I just wanted to relay that to you. So sometimes I get multiple lives come through with little glimpses just for whatever reason there may be. So just connect how you can, okay? So first of all, what was coming through were two things that were somewhat similar and had like a similar theme. So first was the story of the Frog Prince. If you don't know it, please look it up. It's like I think it's just like a classic fairy tale type of story, The Frog Prince, where the princess, I feel like, wants to experience something outside of her usual routine or kingdom, whatever. She comes across a frog who says he's a prince, wants to get a kiss kind of thing. Now, how you might connect with that could be metaphorical in the sense of like having kissed too many frogs, as in making poor decisions romantically in the past, or almost like being presented with potential partnerships where they seem really good at the beginning and full of promises, and it turns out just to be kind of like another lesson, which would just, if that's the case, if you do connect, would be to understand that those were karmic. So when you're feeling extremely pulled to someone that may have toxic red flags or toxic traits or behaviors, and you're still pulled, understand if you can step back and see, okay, this is a karmic thing. And when you're able to see that, you have more control over whether or not to walk down that path or just to cut the karma and be like, I don't want to do that anymore. So just keep that in mind in case you're having any issues with these kinds of relationships where you feel magnetized kind of thing. So keep that in mind. Then the second thing that's kind of similar is just bear with me, but Mario Brothers, the game, the Mario Brothers, like old school, where Mario's like needing to save the princess from what is it, a dinosaur? Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember the name. But anyway, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But again, it's the idea of like a princess in distress, a damsel in distress, or placed in a situation where she feels like there's no options really, or stuck somewhere. So how you might relate to this would be, by the way, even with the Frog Prince, if you've ever like enjoyed these stories, or if they're a part of your childhood, if Mario Brothers, if you used to play that, that kind of thing would be connections. And it could be they might be coming up because you connect in that way, because I know I do. So it's definitely, I know that they're using like my library of information to bring this through. But again, it's the idea of feeling stuck and looking to external forces for help, like external influences or people, friends, family, whatever, to get you out of a situation. And in the Frog Prince, it's like you're in the situation, or the princess in the situation needs to climb out of it herself kind of thing. It's making decisions for herself. So I feel like this is boiling down to a concept of understanding that you have all of the power and answers within yourself, and you don't need external help in a lot of ways, in the sense I want to say external influences influencing your decisions or your path, making sure that you are the one laying your path, you're the one that is making the decisions for yourself, and almost like understanding that certain decisions may put you in a situation where you feel stuck. And it's almost like I want to say the message would be just to remember what you've gone through so that you learn from it, so that the decisions you make for yourself, you can stand firm in knowing that they are different than before. So therefore the situation will be different. In the sense, it feels almost like a more of a freedom rather than being bogged down or stuck, whether it's due to obligation or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? So anyway, just keep making connections with that. However you can, and we're going to go ahead and dive into this here. All right. Okay. So, excuse me, knuckle crack. Okay. So where we're going here is the island card. The island card can be like, oh yeah, Hawaii and Fiji and, you know, but it can also be Australia, Japan, UK, all those, other islands, technical islands. So I'm trying to look and see where we're going. So the place that this feels like, the feeling I'm getting is that this is an island that is off of the coast of a very large country. So it's not like Hawaii where you have to like fly hours out to Hawaii. This would be like off the coast in the sense where you might even be able to see the coastline from the coastline, if that makes sense. Like on the mainland, you can look out and be like, there's the island, and the island, you'd be like, there's the mainland. That proximity is what it feels like. So it feels like we are looking somewhere along the coastline. It's a, hold on, sorry, the western, yes. It's a western coastline. It feels like we're looking at Europe, and it feels like it's a western coastline in Western Europe-ish kind of thing. But what I'm getting right now for some reason is our two countries. So we're looking up at the Scandinavian islands, or it might be a peninsula, or maybe we're going to the are those islands? If those are islands and they're not just being called islands because they're, I don't know, that's where we might be going. But then there is something that is a little bit of a blip off of Spain. And what I would do if I were you is Google an island off of Spain, like island off the coast of Spain, like Google that. And see if there, if something pops up as like the main one, like, and one that it would be visible kind of, or just very close, like a boat ride away kind of thing, like less than a day away. And see if you are pulled to that place. See, like, look at photos of it, if you can find it, if there is one. Look at photos, the culture, that kind of thing, and look in and see if you're pulled there. But also we're looking at Scandinavia, but the western, like the west. So go and Google, you know, get a map and look there as well, and see what country is there, because I think this might be Norway. So there's something Norwegian, there's something almost like Spanish, or even Portugal, but it's more Spain. But go ahead and Google and see what islands are there. With Norway, it could be that we're talking about Norway, and as I talk, things get clearer, so just bear with me as I'm talking. Because, okay, so it's almost a feeling that we're looking at someone who might have started off in one of these places and moved to another one of these places. Hold on. Okay, so, sorry, I'm trying to see. So it's almost like we were looking at someone that might be born off the coast of Spain, or on the westernmost edge of Spain, and moved with the family to what feels like the Scandinavian area. And I feel like it's because of like a job. So if we're looking at like an aspect of you here that's a kid moving with his family, it's like the father got a job, and the job has to do with what feels like collecting data that can only be collected in that part of that like hemisphere, or that part of the world, because of the location of the like longitude, latitude specifics that's there. Almost like the feeling of like, well, there's an observatory up there, so he has to go there because that's where the equipment is in order to collect the data. And I say he because it feels like, oh, it's like the father. So it's like they're moving. And so what we're getting is you feeling displaced because of this move. And it's like the language, the culture, the climate, everything is so different that we're looking at someone going through culture shock. And this feeling of displacement where it's like, where you were comfortable before, even in your own skin, it's like now you're not even comfortable in your skin because even your skin is different. And there's something about this aspect of you that is very highly aware of the differences between you and the people there. And it's not like the people are bullying or anything like that. It's this feeling of internal uncomfortability just because of like your own anxiety and your own projection of how you must come across to them. And also it's because how you're looking at this new place and the new people, you feel like you're so like, it's so taken, like you're so taken by it, like you're so highly, keenly aware of the differences that you feel like they are so keenly aware of the differences. And so what I want to say that feels like that's coming through that you might connect with is the idea of negative self-talk to yourself, almost like feeling like people are judging you. And almost if you're someone that's like looking for it, even though it's not the kind of thing you would be consciously aware of, like you're looking like there, I think they're judging me, I see her looking, that kind of thing. It's not like that. It's more like where you just find that you are highly aware and taking temperatures of everyone around you in regards to how you might be affecting them or how your presence is affecting people. So this is a feeling of almost like self-awareness in the sense of judging yourself through others' eyes. So how you might connect with this would be if you judge yourself, or if you feel like people are judging you, or if you feel like there is cause for others to judge you. And it could be the kind of thing where it's like, sorry about background noise. It could be the kind of thing where maybe you have moved when you were younger, like maybe you moved around a lot and you never quite settled, so you never got a groundedness to yourself to understand that you are perfectly fine just as you are. Almost like I want to say the feeling of a lack of self-acceptance to a certain degree or level that would make you feel grounded and assured about yourself, in the sense where any self-judgment wouldn't be there. So just in the case that you connect with that and you feel like there is self-judgment, this would be a message for you to start taking steps to realize that because of past thought patterns and emotional patterns and maybe circumstances, you might have been training yourself your whole life in those instances to judge yourself almost as a self-correcting tool to make sure that you don't get called out or get or like you aren't standing out in the crowd for reasons that might feel like ridicule or like embarrassed or whatever it might be. But really these things are not. It's the kind of thing where it's like if you see someone laughing, you might automatically assume they're laughing at you. Or if you do something silly and people laugh at you, you might take it as laughing at you instead of laughing like with your humor or with your genius. Like that kind of thing, like not giving yourself credit, rather skewing things so that you're judging rather than exploring all the degrees of the emotions that you have, or all the degrees of your humor, or all the degrees of the character that you are, that you bring to the table. So it might be a question of self-worth, self-value that we're looking at here. And this comes from this, if that's the case, and if you don't connect, tuck in the back of your mind. But if you're connecting, this feels like this kid, literally it's culture shock to the brain, to the body. And it's like not being addressed because this kid, and this feels like a boy, like a young boy, and it feels like the parents aren't aware of it, or they think it's like, oh, it's just kids, you know, like he's just adjusting. So it's being like blown off. So you might feel in your current life like people might blow you off, like they might just blow off if you're feeling like you might have been called sensitive, like stop being so sensitive, or that kind of thing, where you might have been you might be trained by now to be like, stop being so sensitive, like to yourself, like letting things, like almost like not letting things affect you or feeling your emotions fully in order to heal them, because you want to push them away, so that because you might feel like they are a pain in the butt, or they're intrusive or not necessary, or whatever it might be, where you are not to the full extent experiencing your emotional range. Maybe because you, again, like however you grew up, if you were like told to kind of suck it up kind of thing, this, and only if you connect with that, this would be a message for you to start giving yourself permission to feel all your feels and express them. And here's the thing, when you express your feelings and emotions, you very quickly realize the people around you, who are your allies and who are toxic. Because those the toxic ones, they're not going to understand. They're going to be embarrassed. They're going to basically project feelings that they would feel themselves if they were displaying that emotion, but that's on them. So these are people that would discourage expression, that would want you to, they would want you to not express yourself in ways that are expansive because they don't want you to change. Those are toxic people, even if they love you and you love them. You know what I mean? So a lot of times we're presented with hard options like that because we need to learn to put up boundaries or cut cords or shorten our time with certain people who are toxic, even if they are loved ones, for our own personal development and growth, understanding that your solo journey is the most important one. So that's why sometimes this kind of thing happens. So let's see, and the ones that are not toxic, they'll listen to you, they'll hear you out. And it's not about, even if they like go back and forth and debate with you, it's not going to feel like they're pressuring you to become smaller or limit your expression or anything like that. They'll want to understand it. So do know the difference when you're talking to someone, or just be aware of, and that's just what's coming through, is to be aware of the difference when someone is having a dialogue with you to understand versus coming at you to shut you up or to diminish your feelings or to make you feel or feel discouraged in expressing you see the difference? So I feel like this just might be coming up in the case that there might be people around you or someone around you that you might be aware of that has these traits. If someone's coming to mind right now, that's the person, and that would be just a bit of a that's your intuition essentially telling you, hey, look at this person, they might be toxic, what do you want to do about it? That kind of thing. If no one comes to mind, that's fine. Things might click later. So just keep that in mind, however you might connect. Now, this idea also of traveling from one place to another, if you in your current life have a direct connection where you were born in one place but you were brought to another, it could be you grew up in one place but were brought to another, had to move. Could have been for divorce. It could have been for, parents have a different job. Could be like military, kind of moving around. But it would have happened like kind of in like before or around puberty kind of thing, when emotions are high and we feel awkward, and there's a great displacement that happens when you're brought, you're taken from where you're used to and put in a totally different place, culture shock. So that would be a direct connection if that happened and you felt out of place. But the opposite connection would be if you are someone that's really good with change, really good with adjustment, even enjoys the idea of moving around, because here it caused emotional turmoil, so that your soul might want to come back, having gone through that already, wanting to experience a better experience with it, or I want to say like just less distressing, more of like an interesting experience than distressing, because here it was more distressing. But also we're looking at feelings being chalked up to a normal thing, like, oh, it's puberty, he's just having a hard time, like normalizing that rather than actually addressing the emotional range and talking about how to respond to things, how to feel about yourself, it's okay, like that kind of thing. I feel like this aspect did not get here. He had to struggle on his own and kind of like find self-resolution without any leadership or anyone to look up to, or a role model or a parent figure or someone soothing him, telling him like it's okay. Rather it's just like, oh, you're just going through it. It's like, that's not helpful. So in your current life, what kind of family were you born to? Were you born to a family where they direct connection would be if they just kind of were just like, okay, yeah, you're feeling what you're feeling because you're going through that phase, everyone goes through that, like, is that what your growing up kind of thing was like? Or did you, the opposite would be if you came back and you chose people who were very intuitive or present for you, emotionally present, wanting to nurture your growth and help you understand why you're feeling a certain way, you know what I mean? Like, so we're looking at basically who, like the authority figures in your life and how they guided, helped, or lack thereof as you are going through your developmental stages, if that makes sense. So how you might connect with that. So let's see. Oh, and by the way, any connection you might have to Spain or to Norway or the Scandinavian islands, if you've ever wanted to vacation there, maybe you visited already, you've always been pulled, who knows? But we're looking for a connection to that. It can also be where you would look at, like, I would say Scandinavia, if you like the idea of visiting there is like, nah, not my cup of tea, for no reason, because of being displaced and put there. But we're going to be getting into the life, so it doesn't feel like it's all bad, it just feels like it's a disrupt at a young age. So any connection you can make to that. But yeah, we're going to go ahead to the next card here. So this is the Hunter and Provider card. Now, usually we can get this card a lot where it's like there's a tribe and you're a hunter and gatherer, right? Like a kind of like direct thing. But it feels like this card is coming up because the Hunter Provider talks about resources. And I feel like this is specifically speaking to you as you're growing up, having to be your own resources. Like you providing your own emotional guidance, you providing your own comfort. It feels like you really went inward, and it also feels like we're looking at someone like going inward, almost like an introvert. But almost like I want to say it didn't have to be that way if there were other influences around to help guide and promote more of like a openness, so to speak. But we're looking at someone who went introverted at a younger age because of this move and not getting the right or proper amount of guidance from outside. So having to go inside for whatever guidance can be gotten there. And this is actually a very good thing. This would indicate that you in your current life are very intuitive and very in tune and aligned with yourself, even if you feel like you're not. Because if you feel like you're not, that is your programming telling you that you're disconnected and now you have to find your way back to the connection. That's not the case. The case is you are connected and aligned. You've just been programmed that you're not. So you don't have to find your way back. You're already there. You just got to like tap in. And how you do that is by trusting that you are and believing that you are. And that can be a process, yes, but it can also be cold turkey. It just depends on how your mind works or what you're ready for to shift into, if that makes sense. So if you've been feeling lately, or maybe you already are aware how intuitive you are, but if you feel like, I'm not quite there, I want to be, I'm interested in development, I'm interested in this kind of thing, this would just be a message, kind of like a reminder to let you know you're already there. You're already intuitive and you're aligned, and the reason you're seeking it out is because it's already there. You just want to feel it more. So do understand that feeling your intuition and tapping in feels very subtle. It's not a conk over the head. It's not like it's not like that kind of thing. It's a subtle dialogue with your internal voice. And how you know the difference when it's your intuition versus your ego is very loud. Your ego is like, no, you can't do that. You can't. Your ego wants to stop you from changing because your ego, it's kind of like a child that throws a tantrum when change is introduced so that it can stay in control. That's a loud voice. You always hear that. We all hear the ego, yes. The trick is to hear it, recognize it, understand it, be aware of it, acknowledge it, and then let it fade away. And pay attention to the intuition, which is kind of a gentle whisper. And it's always a pull. It's always a guidance. It's always this kind of thing. You know what I mean? So just be aware of that because it's constantly talking to you. It's just about getting past the ego loud voice to get to that gentle whisper of a pull kind of thing. So keep that in mind and connect however you can. But this is indicating someone who at a young age went internal to the outside world. It's like, oh, he's shy. Oh, he's quiet. Oh, he's social anxiety, whatever it is. And you may have social anxiety. You may be shy and you may be quiet and introvert, and that's fine. But this also is not a bad thing because it connects him with his inner dialogue. So that it's almost like, I want to say this kid starts talking to himself at a young age, and it's a mechanism of self-soothing. But in doing so, he's also connecting to his higher self and his inner self and his deeper parts of him that are helping guide him And also helping give him like patience, you might say, like this kid is accumulating patience, groundedness, because that's what he needs, or that's what I feel like he needed from his parents or his sibling, if there are siblings or whatever. But like, it feels like they don't play a big role if there are siblings. That's why, at least not right now, but the parents, at least, any guardians, he didn't get that from, so he learned to do it himself. So this also would indicate in your current life, if you're someone that you're able to really just do things for yourself. And it's almost like it could be taken as the kind of thing where you're like, you want help with something and they don't get to it in time, so you're like, I'll do it, I'll take care of it. It could be the kind of thing where if you grew up and you were placed in like in groups in school, you would take care of it, or you preferred to work alone. This can also be that you can't, but it's also a message of you can take care of yourself, you can get things done. So it's almost like, make sure that if that's the case, don't allow others to influence the path that you walk. If you have such an internal strength, like rely on that in making decisions for yourself, if that makes sense, which you probably already do. So however you might connect with that, but we're looking at a very resourceful person. So do trust that you have resourcefulness within you and you can tap into that anytime, because it's here. It's been like, it is heavily accumulated here. Like that is what you worked on, because everything you needed emotionally, mentally, whatever, you had to find within yourself. So it's happened here. That means it's part of you. So you could tap into that resourcefulness anytime, if that makes sense. So keep making connections where you can with this. Let's see what else is, if there's anything else coming through. This can also mean that you might not like asking for help, or feel like you can't rely on others, or have walls up when it comes to letting people in deeply, so to speak, because it's like almost a feeling of protectiveness, if that makes sense. Or almost like if you like to make people earn their way in. Not in an egotistical sense, but just having to earn their way in, because once they're in, there's a lot of goopy emotions and you have to be protective over that because it could be easily hurt. So just something to consider. On the opposite connection would be if you are an extrovert and you are expressive and you are just like blah, you know, you live in your life and you're just out there. That would be very opposite to this, and there's no wrong or right. It's just however you might make that connection. But let's go ahead and go to the first important day. So here we have the birth card. And the birth card is we're witnessing a birth, or we're having kids, or whatever it is here happening. This is the child card, which goes right along with that, which is nice. I like seeing that. This here is the betrayed card. All right, so this is interesting. This is jumping us into your late teens. It feels like you've settled in Norway, you're home, like you're there. You've been there for years. You're getting you've adjusted as much as you can. Still an introvert, but not like, when I say introvert, it's not like you're being ostracized, and it's not like you're being exiled or like made to feel like an outcast. It feels like it's being done to you internally, or was done when you were younger. We were talking about like you did, almost like you did it to yourself. And it's not anyone's fault. It's not even your fault. It's just, it was your natural reaction to do that, almost like a self-preservation survival technique, because you didn't know any differently. So I feel like this is just coming up, just as you might connect to pay attention to things that you may do that is ultimately like a survival technique for you, emotionally, mentally, whatever it might be. Find what you do that you would consider to be a survival technique for your emotions that has to do with keeping out people that may be good for you. Not people that are toxic, but things that you might do that you might like, and sorry in the background if you heard a dog snoring, I apologize, but if there is anything you do that makes you feel better because it's like wrapping a blanket around you or your heart or whatever, but it actually might be self-sabotaging when it comes to blocking people who may be healthy for your growth or healthy for you in a non-toxic way, just be aware of what you might do. And if anything comes to mind right now, that's it. That's definitely something. But if not, you want to, for the next few days, just kind of process this and see what it is you might do. Kind of watch yourself do what you do when it comes to relationships letting people in, putting walls up kind of thing, and how you kind of self-soothe yourself, and what is, first of all, like, what makes you self-soothe? What triggers you into self-soothing? What triggers you into if you close up at all? That kind of thing. You want to see the motivation behind the triggers, or the wounds behind the triggers that causes you to do these things. That ultimately, I feel like it would cut communication from a healthy relationship, or a friend, just healthy kind of thing, that you might feel is unhealthy, but there's no basis for it. I know this is weirdly specific, but if anything's coming to mind, it's that. If nothing comes to mind, tuck it in the back of your mind for a later time, see what comes up, and just be aware. It's like, it's just a message of being aware of self-soothing techniques or mechanisms that you use. It's not that they're bad, it's the part that comes in that we want to tweak a little, is the putting the wall up and not letting people see or know, like healthy friends, healthy relationship, not letting those people see what you're doing and why you're doing it. Almost, I want to say this is vulnerability. And if you know that you have some issues with revealing or showcasing or showing your vulnerability to people that you deep down know would take it in stride and love you despite, or they even might love that about you, but you don't reveal that to them, that kind of thing. This is just a call for you to be aware of it, of when you're doing it, and to see if you feel ready to make some changes in the way of allowing loved ones that you feel safe with to see you become triggered and put that safety net, almost like you can explain it to them. And this allows people in, but you listen to your intuition about who you allow in, but you still, you allow them in rather than just a thought, if that makes sense. It feels like this would be the next step as far as self-healing goes. And again, if you don't connect, that's fine. Just tuck it in the back of your mind, later time kind of thing. But that's what's coming through here. Anyway, so back to this birth, child, and betrayal card. It feels like we're in late teens, and it feels like you get someone pregnant, and it feels like they keep the baby, and it feels like, and it's almost like they keep the baby not out of spite, but just because it's like who they are and what they want and what they believe in. And it's not like to keep you, to tie you down or anything like that, but it does feel like it's in your nature to want to stand by your, like if this is your kid, you want to like be there for the kid. But there's also this, the betrayed feeling is because you didn't want kids, so it's almost like you're betraying yourself, because it feels like based on what you went through as a young child, you're like, I don't want to have a kid and have them go through that same angst where I might not be able to help them, or they might just, you know, revert into themselves and not go after things that, for example, they might have been more extroverted, and like they might have played, this aspect feels like he might have played a certain sport, but he didn't want to put himself out there for either failure, judgment, or put in the spotlight, like that kind of thing. So we're also looking at someone self-soothing for insecurities. So this is the time where you want to be very real with yourself and see where in your life you still feel insecure, emotionally, vulnerability wise, like where you still feel insecure, and to really look at the insecurities. And you want to see which insecurities are in there because of programming from your childhood that you were taught you should feel insecure about, because society thinks it should be an insecurity, but really it's just being human. So I almost want to say that if you connect with that, it's time to start humanizing your insecurities. Humanizing them, as in when they come up, be aware of them, don't back away from them, don't talk bad about them, don't judge them, rather observe them and be like, oh, okay, I'm insecure about this, but it's because I've been taught that this should be an insecurity in the society I live in, but really, I'm a human being, and I know I'm not alone with this insecurity or this thing in my life. It shouldn't be an insecurity. This is just me being human. I'm allowed to feel human. Like that kind of thing. Like you want to talk yourself, like massage your way through your insecurity to get it to another level, which is it's your humanity. So we're looking to transmute or alchemize any insecure thoughts into human thoughts, or any insecure feelings into this is being human. And I feel like this is going to help in a lot of ways even if right now you might not be making connections, just tuck them back in your mind. But if you are making connections with this will be very helpful, because your mind is that powerful that it can change that. And when you change those thought patterns, you shift into a new reality, new version of yourself, a way more empowered version. I feel like this is where we're heading. So just need to take it with a grain of salt, but you know, if you connect, just connect. Now, this can also connect with you in the way of how you might feel with young pregnancies, or even like you having children yourself. So even if you have kids, it could be that you never wanted kids, or you never saw yourself with kids. Or if you wanted kids, it would be, one of the big reasons would be to make sure that they don't have to go through what you have to go through, or to give them what you didn't have, or to keep them in a, not a safety bubble, but like to keep them from going through things that you might have had to go through, whether emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it might be. So how do you connect with the idea of having children? And if you don't have children, let's say you don't want children, if that might be a shame spot, a guilt spot, or an insecure spot, that would be a good place to start with what we were talking about, massaging it to humanity. If this is just a human thought, I don't want kids because I don't want kids, and that's okay. Like, you don't even have to explain why you don't want what you don't want, or why you want what you want. You just have to allow it and be okay with that, because it's human. Not everyone wants kids, you know what I mean? But on the opposite would be if you came back into this life wanting a family intentionally, because this was created unintentionally. So it could be your soul wanted to come back to do it intentionally, on your own timeline, like in your own way, versus here where there was a lack of control, which I feel is very triggering to this aspect here, this boy, very triggering, because he has no control over it. And this is also like, he's a good person, like this is a gentle soul. And with this girl that he got pregnant, it's like he just wanted love. It's just like he was with her because he wants to love something, and he wants to feel love. And there is a loveliness between them, but they certainly were not prepared or ready to take the next step in creating a family. And again, it doesn't feel like she's doing it out of spite to be like, well, now you're stuck with me. It's not like that. It's just like, this is my belief system. It feels like there's something, maybe not religious, but definitely like, it could be religious for her, like where she's like, this would just be wrong to, you know, not go through, you know, to like not go through with it. Or even like, well, it is what it is. Like, it's that weird kind of, it is what it is, and it's happening for a reason, you know, which it is happening for a reason, but like, where there might have been steps she could have taken to, you know, get rid of that option, she didn't. And it's not that you're disappointed in her not taking that option, because you understand, like, it is her, like, there's something about, like, you're not a controlling person, but this takes away all control. Because you're controlling for yourself. With all this introvertedness that happened in order to self-soothe and cope with the I want to say differences, or the culture shock, you at least had control over your interior universe, and here it just takes away all control. You have to just go along with it. So in your current life, that might be very triggering to you when you feel like you don't have control over a situation. If you are triggered by not having control, that is a place you want to look at and understand why you are triggered by lack of control, and also what you can do to feel safer in letting go of that control. Because I feel like that control, it's the kind of thing where when you set expectations, you'll be disappointed. When you're used to having control and it's taken away, that can cause a emotional reaction that may make you react or do things or think things that has a domino effect in a way that might be not in your best interest. You know what I mean? Even if it's like hurting others or whatever, it ultimately comes back to you, and it might not be in your best interest. So it's almost like a message of, and this is if you connect, a message of sitting in the uncomfortability of letting go of control, and like just trusting the universe will unravel the path before you. This is not to say not to put an effort into whatever it is you're passionate about to move forward, but there's a sense of control that you might even not even be aware of. So this is about self-awareness and seeing where there may be control, that it's time to try to take baby steps towards letting go a little bit. And this could be if you do have kids, and you know, we get a lot of parents who just want to control everything because it has to do a lot with their childhood, where they might see their kid and consider their kid is suffering, we'll say, but really their kid is just going through the pangs of growth and development, and they want to be able to control that degree of pain or development, but it's not for them to do that. It's to allow them to let the child go through whatever they have to go through emotionally or whatever, and just be there as support system, but not actually control the development, if that makes sense. That's what we're kind of looking at here. So just keep that in mind. Let's see, because the control too can limit yourself, where you might want to control yourself so much that you're not even allowing yourself to look a certain way because of that control. So just little things to be aware of. Let's see. So, and how you might connect with underage pregnancies or whatever, it might trigger you. Like that show that was on where it was, I think it's just, what was it called? Like just teenage moms, or you know what I'm talking about, just like the reality show of teenage moms. If that triggered you deeply, that would be a connection because of being placed in a position here that you were not ready for and not intending. But this can also come back as an opposite connection in your life, where you might be someone, again, that is very fluid with change and good at shifting and adjusting because of this. The betrayal card comes in because it's like a betrayal to yourself. Like you never intended that to happen. It feels like this aspect of you is just like really big hearted and would never put the blame on your partner. So this can also indicate you in your current life when it comes to relationships, that you might be a bleeding heart, you might be very forgiving, and you might also have an issue with putting up boundaries when it is toxic or unhealthy. And if that is the case, this would just be a calling for you to look at those boundaries or look at that area in your life, and see about, again, taking baby steps towards kind of massaging it out, if that makes sense. Because we're looking to, again, open some kind of gates for you to move forward. We want like forward momentum here. And what I mean by that is it could be, yeah, next chapter, leaving things in the past, or it could be forward momentum on finally moving through some issues you've had since a young age, and making headway with that just by pointing out some things that you might not have considered that can not just make you feel better, but open up your intuitive abilities and your it can jumpstart another kind of awakening. It can give you answers. It can tap you into the flow of your universal path. Like all these really great things can happen when you do the emotional mental work that can feel kind of icky. So let's see. So again, so how I want to wrap this up is just with the like a last message of like this day, at least looking at where you feel like you may be betraying yourself more than other people betraying you. Where are you betraying yourself? Where are you not loving yourself? Where are you not giving yourself the attention, the focus, the care, the kindness, the loving self-talk? Where are you not doing that for yourself? Because where you're not doing that is the betrayal. The betrayal comes when you are talking to yourself negatively, when you are judging yourself, when you are not being your own best friend. Like you and your vessel, your body, you're here for your lifetime. You've got to be your best friend. Okay? So just keep making connections with that. And we're going to go to the next important day. So here we have the war card, and this can mean war is on the horizon, war is coming physically, like a real war, but this can also be internal war, internal struggles. And the relationship we're feeling with this is the soul group card. And the soul group card is usually like what you might hear people say, or you call it your tribe. People that you come in and out of lifetimes with time and time again. And usually, more often than not, this card is for the ones that are encouraging and helpful and loving and kind, not soulmates in the way where soulmates actually can be frenemies or enemies at some point because we learn lessons from them. It's not always rainbows and sunshine with soulmates. But usually with the soul group card, it's like soul groupies, like your tribe, your peeps, your people who speak your language, like that kind of thing. And the feelings, just to back that up here, the feelings card is light of love. So what I feel like we're seeing on this day is a young adult, and it feels like it might be a young adult feeling versus an older teenager, because it feels like it might be like your kid is just born. And I want to say the first time the child has a tantrum, you might break down. because it's triggering you so greatly. And by tantrum, I mean like almost like as an infant, the child, maybe like the first time the child cries and cries and cries and cries and can't be soothed, I feel like triggers you so greatly here, where it's showing me this, I say young adult because the maturity level like stepped up when you realize you were going to be a father. So this is like where we see you like looking into getting jobs, bringing in money, like that, assuming the role of an adult. At this young age, which if you connect with, if you had to assume the role of an adult or mature at a very young age, that would be a direct connection. Opposite would be if you were able to enjoy a childhood of childish things and play and fun, and you know what I mean? So however you might connect with that, but here they're showing me this young man almost, I want to say crouching, covering his ears kind of thing in the corner while the mother tends to the child, and him just being like, it's like there's like trauma of unresolved things from the past coming up to his surface. And the soul group is, that kid is part of your soul group because that kid unknowingly, on a soul level, very lovingly, is helping you recognize where you are harboring deep feeling issues, deep-seated issues that need to come to the surface and be addressed in order for you to be the best man, best father, best partner, best person that you can be. And you can't do that by keeping all of these issues repressed your whole life. In order to give this kid the best life the kid has or could have, you need to be emotionally aware yourself. So I feel like this is coming up for you to understand that when things come to the surface and they feel icky, like memories, have you ever had the memories that like pop into your mind for no reason and you wince at them? Like you wince because it's like embarrassing or shameful or ugh, you know, like ugh, that feeling. Getting a hold of those feelings and being able to see it exactly in the second it's happening and kind of pause, remove yourself emotionally, observe it and forgive yourself or love yourself despite, or let go, like if you're embarrassed by something you did in the past, you're remembering it, to instead pause that moment and visualize yourself going up to yourself in that moment and saying, I love you, you're doing the best you can, everything's gonna be fine. That kind of thing, these kinds of exercises are so incredibly helpful. And if you connect with that in any way, I would encourage you to start doing that. It's the idea, again, of sitting in the uncomfortability and not attaching to the emotions of it, but observing it so that you can see it from a different perspective. It's the kind of thing where it's like, I think Einstein said that quote about like, solutions to problems can't be found at the same level that the problem was created at. It's that kind of thing. So in order to find resolution or solutions to these internal, emotional, mental, whatever it might be, issues that you might be harboring from a young age, you need to not back away from it and not cringe so much or not want to get away from the uncomfortability of it. Unless it's, you know, severely traumatizing, of course, but like if it's coming up and it just feels kind of icky, instead of running away from it, like, you know, going a different direction, you might want to sit, pause, detach, observe, and learn to just kind of dwell in there and shower it with loving thoughts, forgiving thoughts, higher frequency thoughts, and that's you raising your vibration automatically. So these are ways we can heal ourselves or heal our childhood issues slowly and surely at your own pace by allowing them to just rise to the surface by being triggered without trying. And recognizing what's happening in the moment is a trauma is coming to the surface. And when it comes to the surface, that's actually an opportunity. A lot of people don't like it. Most people don't like it because it feels icky. But if you see it for what it is, it's an opportunity. It's at the surface. It's showing itself. It's revealing its ugly head. So you can grab hold of it and pull it out by detaching emotionally, observing, and putting loving frequencies into that memory, and you're transmuting it that way. It's energy work. It's thoughts are energy. This is all energy work. Just something to consider, okay? So just keep making connections where you can with that. This is an internal struggle. You're seeing your issues rise to the surface. So just be patient and loving with yourself and do what you can. And don't get frustrated if it's not moving quickly enough or you're not seeing results quickly enough or you forget to do it. Don't judge yourself. Those are big steps in themselves. Give credit where it's due. if you simply are not judging yourself for something you used to judge yourself for, that is a big deal. Celebrate that. Celebrate every step you take. Give yourself credit in that way. We don't celebrate ourselves enough. That's the problem. So keep making connections where you can here, and we're going to go to the death card. So this is the accident card. So what I feel like happens for the accident, it feels like it's a kind of a self-induced accident, almost like it might be that you take up drinking or something like that. And honestly, what this feels like is you're drinking and you're in a car and it's so cold outside and you fall asleep and it feels like you freeze to death because you feel like the drinking is keeping you warm, but you haven't like drunk enough to keep you warm and alive for the amount of time that your sleep happens. And it feels like we're looking at someone who's maybe 40 or mid 30s. And it feels like it's just like the drinking happened because it's like that's kind of where you turn to deal with the things that rise to the surface. So when this rose to the surface with this baby crying that triggered you and you didn't know how to cope. So you numbed yourself. And then this happened. It's a complete accident. You didn't mean to. So in your current life, if you find that you numb yourself or you go numb emotionally, or you're looking to use substances to numb things, like if you feel an oncoming thing, like an oncoming emotional breakdown or nervous breakdown or a panic attack or whatever it is, I mean, yes, do what you got to do to calm yourself. But it's almost like I want to say, if there's anything you're doing to numb when you get triggered and things are brought to the surface, just try taking baby steps to just lessen it a little bit so that maybe there's a nice little balance you can get where it might just be like you deal with the triggers, like whatever's coming through, you deal with it a little bit while you're also able to still feel good by using whatever you might use or doing what you might do. It might just be that you do breathing techniques, and that's great. You know, it doesn't mean you have to drink. It doesn't mean you are into alcohol or anything like that. It could be. That could be a connection. So if that's the case, that's a connection. But it doesn't have to be. We're just looking at techniques you might use in order to not be dealing with emotional things. That's what we're looking at. And if you do, that's it's a direct connection. It would just be a message to like, hey, lessen that just a little bit so we can work on this a little bit, you know, nothing crazy. The opposite connection is if you're someone that just like dives into your emotions and you're like, I want to figure this out. I want to feel this. I want to get over this. I want to move through this. And I don't want it numb. I don't want, you know, and if it's the complete opposite in that way, then there'd be a message of, hey, it's okay to have some self-soothing techniques as long as they're not going to harm you and as long as you can still work on some of the emotional stuff as you move through life. Like that kind of thing. Again, at your own pace. That's comfortable. Don't force yourself into like re-traumatizing yourself, essentially. You don't want to do that in that case. So just make connections how you can here. This can also mean that you might have come back into this current life, one, to stay away from cold weather. You might not like cold weather, or like a place that is considered to be like maybe continuously cold or more cold than not. Or you could have come back to be in a place where it is cold weather in order to kind of make friends with it again after it defeated you, so to speak, after it got to you. So however you might be, this could also be if you're someone that always has like cold hands and feet, you know, like you're just kind of always cold and you always want a sweater, like that kind of thing. Little connections like that. And if you chose to come back into a family where there is alcoholism, that can be a connection as well. So yeah, just keep making connections with that however you can. And remember, no judgment for anything. And we're going to go ahead to the lesson card. So here, this is the let go card, which I feel like is really good because I feel like we were mentioning about letting go of something earlier, had to do with control. So we're looking at the letting go of control. That's how this is connecting here. The thing is there was a letting go of control because nothing could be done here. So that kind of letting go was learned. Then here though, you reassumed control by starting to consume substances so that you can still feel like you have control over your emotional status. which you didn't let go of, it ultimately defeated you, so to speak. And then that's not bad or anything, it's just, it's a lesson. So what you might want to be aware of is that it's very likely that the letting go lesson is just being redistributed to your current life. It doesn't mean it's the lesson of your life. You know, we have many, many, many lessons, but it could be a prominent lesson needing to let go. And it could be letting go of bad habits, letting go of people by creating boundaries, letting go of the control that you might try to put into your life or people around you, but more would be about your life where it's actually limiting you. And that's where you want to look as far as stepping onto the next step where it comes to your focus of self-growth, self-development, that kind of thing, okay? So just keep making connections where you can with that, the let go card. As far as the timeline goes, what I'd love for you to do is Google observatories in the Scandinavian islands, if you can, Norway, but I would look at all the islands because I would look at when the first observatories were built there, and that will give you, at the very least, it might not have been like that year that it was built that you moved there, but you want to look at when it was built, and if you can find when there were any recruitments brought up there, like recruiting either engineers for the technology or recruiting astronomy based or observatory based scientific career people to do data research, that kind of thing. So that could be, it could be the 1800s, it could be the 1900s. Like, go and look and see the timelines, see what vibes with you, because that'll give you a better picture. Because this is not an ancient life. This is, it feels like there is technology, it feels like there is, I want to say electricity, that kind of thing. So see what you can find as far as the era goes, but it says this is not ancient at all. So keep that in mind, keep making connections where you can. And anyway, there's your past life. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections. And thanks for letting me read you.